Time to talk about Tremors, A Cold Day in Hell. It will be a cold day in hell before I can say something positive about this movie. Oh my God! All right, disclaimer. So we both saw this. Me, and you, Joe. We both watched this. After I watched this, I felt bad for making you see it too.
Well, it was on Netflix. I decided why not join you in this.
I had a free Redbox rental. This is how I spent it. All right, let me get the disclaimer out of the way, the intro out of the way. Okay. Tremors, the original Tremors from 1990, was one of the first films I ever watched. Going all the way back to about 1999, 2000, going way back here, when I was about 3-4 years old. One of the first movies I watched, didn't understand much of it, loved it, didn't feel scared by it or anything, thought it was really exciting, exhilarating. I mean, it's technically a horror movie in a lot of ways too, but it's also got a lot of things of an action movie, a lot of the qualities of a thriller in a way. I was enthralled.
Also kind of funny.
It absolutely got some good humor in it too. I was enthralled by it, by Tremors when I was a kid. Then when I got a little bit older, about 8 and 9, I sought out the sequels. And it's funny to think I was around when I started watching them. Tremors 4 was pretty new. It was newer, at least. The second one I love, Aftershocks. That's a really good sequel with Fred Ward. I thought that was a really good one. That's
5?
That's the fourth one. That's the second one, excuse me.
Tremors 2.
You're talking
about Tremors 2. Okay, I thought you meant after 4.
I'm going chronologically here. Tremors 2 Aftershocks, pretty good movie. Liked it a lot. There's some really good scenes, like the ending is great of that movie. Tremors 3 Back to Perfection, not as good as Tremors 2, but still pretty good. It's got some interesting qualities to it. If you can get past sort of the corniness of like the graboids turning into shriekers and then ass blasters, if you can get past that, it's a little bit, it's okay. It's got some corniness to it. The supporting characters aren't as good, but it's all right. Tremors 4, The Legend Begins, the prequel, is one I've had a love and hate relationship with since I was a kid. After I couldn't make it through it as a kid. I could not. I shut it off right when Black Hen Kelly came in. Couldn't watch it, didn't like it, felt no connection to it. After watching it now about 2 or 3 times, it's safe to say it's a decent movie in some aspects, but it's a bad movie in others. It's decidedly middle of the road for me. Tremors 5, Bloodlines, I liked when I first saw it, rewatched it. Not as good as I remembered. I'm going to tell you that much right now. I was definitely blinded by the love of seeing Tremors on screen again after 11 years of dormancy. And now, with a fresh head, I can revisit Tremors, A Cold Day in Hell, directed like the 5th one by Don Michael Paul, coming 3 years after the 5th movie. This is utter trash, this movie. And it is... I hate completely... I hate to say this because I don't like to say it, but this, if you want to talk about a movie of a sequel that really kind of stomps on the grace and the work of its predecessors, that's what Tremors: A Cold Day in Hell is. Your thoughts, Joe?
I agree. I haven't seen as many of the sequels as you have, and so it's not like it hit me too hard like it did for you.
We're going to be reviewing on
like.
2 different levels.
So it's like Steve's like a big fan of the Tremor series. I like them. I think they're good. Well, at least the ones I've seen, I thought like were fun. The prequel I think is just okay, like you did. Like you say, you have a love-hate relationship.
Yeah,
I could see that. But I think that first one's a classic, man.
I do too,
I think that's a great,
it's a 4-star movie.
I think that's a great example of how to do, if you want to make a B movie sci-fi film but actually make it really good and be original with something, that's what you aim for, is something like Tremors.
Oh yeah, and I think it was Mike D'Angelo, the film critic, who even said too about the original Tremors. He said, I looked through Rotten Tomatoes and I could not find a single review of Tremors that did not use the word fun.
It's a fun movie.
And he's like, try reviewing it without using that F word, and it's really hard because that movie is textbook fun. I mean, you got Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, Finn Carter, who gives a really good performance, and then I think she's underrated. Reba McEntire's in it, as Bert's wife. So it was always a shame she never came back and did the sequel or even for like a cameo. But anyway, with Tremors: A Cold Day in Hell, what you have, I'll explain the plot this time. What you have is Burt Gummer back again with Travis, his son, played by Jamie Kennedy. Michael Gross plays Burt Gummer again. And now Burt is essentially spending his days running classic, iconic, if you will, Chang's Market in Perfection, Nevada, fighting with tax taxmen who are trying to nab him on fraud. But he gets a call from a group of scientists in the Canadian Arctic who have now come across graboids. Of course, the underground worms, blind worms, subterranean. They hunt by sound.
But also the very first graboids ever.
Yes, they actually use the term pre-Cambrian in this movie. So the two learn that rather than the graboids being like a species that belong to deserts, they also have like pre-Cambrian roots as creatures capable of penetrating like the tundra below.
Yeah.
And the awakening in Canada was caused by like the planet's rapidly heating temperatures and stuff, so that it awoke that woke them in the subterranean ice that they were frozen in that was once impenetrable. So now you have Bert, Travis, and a lot of other faces that I said are not as memorable as Helen Slater, Sean Christians, or Fred Ward's from the previous sequels. You have a lot of throwaway characters in Bert and Travis as well, who are trying to investigate the research facility adjacent to them, which is DARPA. And Bert believes that they are responsible for graboids appearing in this uncommon locale.
Yeah.
And then you also have Bert, who's feeling the wrath of graboid venom, who's succumbing to seizure-like spells of like paralysis and nausea.
PTSD.
PTSD as well from when he was swallowed by the graboid in 2001, the Tremors 3. Okay. That's when that happened.
I was gonna ask you. I'm like, so when did that happen?
That was Tremors 3. Really good scene, by the way, too. Just rewatched that not too long ago. It's still a pretty good scene. So let me just say this. What you have here is a movie. First off, nobody in their right minds thought Tremors would ever get past the first movie. It did not do that well in theaters. It was a textbook example of a movie that survived and got sequels because of strong VHS and DVD sales.
I was gonna say cult status.
Yeah, cult status, and that's what because I mean you didn't get Tremors 2 until 6 years later.
Yeah.
So I mean it was definitely not planned or conceived at least as this franchise starter. You know what I mean? You did not have that. So what you have now is a movie that was cruelly mismarketed. This was supposed to take place in the snow. There's no freaking snow.
I was about to say that's the biggest disappointing thing was like, okay, cool, graboids in the snow.
They was in the
and then
opening sequence.
They get to Canada, and it's like, wait, where's all the snow? And it's like, oh, well, it all melted away because of the temperature rising. You guys couldn't just film in snow. That's what it was.
What a cop-out.
Like, the first 20 minutes, the first few kills are in snow. There's, like, one more kill after that. After that, it's a desert again. It's like, oh, come on, you guys.
That is the most disheartening thing about this was because this movie was marketed as, like I said, graboids in the snow, something different. And that's what you get. And then also, their word for I think the other that's sin number one. Sin number two with this movie is it turns Burt Gummer into this sociopathic one-liner spewing character.
Oh God, man.
Who speaks entirely in cliches like my favorite, which is the only one that I really liked out of this whole thing, is I quote Burt Gummer, grabbing a character by the head with two hands by the head like coach to quarterback style in the Super Bowl and yelling, "I suggest you swallow a couple spoonfuls of cement and harden the hell up." And he speaks like Duke Nukem the entire movie.
Yeah.
And it really wears on you,
also,
even as a fan of the series.
That run-on joke with him, like, "Oh, I switched. Did you switch teams? No, I just have a different hat."
Yeah.
All
you needed was to reference it once.
Yeah,
that's all you needed was
they do it
reference
multiple times through the movie.
Because instead of the staple Atlanta Hawks hat he used to wear, he's wearing a Cubs hat now because Michael Gross is
series.
And Michael Gross is from Chicago.
Yeah.
He is from Chicago as well. So that might have been the reason to change the hat. But this and to go on to. And also too, you know, and I don't know if I could say this on air, the Guinness book of, you know, the quote, you know, the popular when he says are in the Guinness book of, you know what I'm talking about. It's probably best I don't repeat it just because it's not a funny line. It's not good at all. It's a textbook poor writing. But
even Travis Welker in this movie is annoying.
God, Jamie Kennedy exhausts me.
Yeah, like that whole thing at the beginning of this movie where he's talking, Bert is talking to scientists in Canada, and the entire time he's just like, "Is she hot? Is she hot?"
Yeah.
Then he hangs up the phone. You didn't ask her if she's hot, and then it's just and then he gets to Canada, he realizes, oh my God, she's hot, and that's literally his joke with her throughout the entire movie. It's like, Dude, man, you're not. This is not funny. Please stop.
What really annoys the crap out of me too is ever since they introduced this Travis character who wasn't at this bad in the 5th movie, but what annoys me now is that every one of these movies has to have, like, every one of these new Tremors movies, that's what I'm calling them, new Tremors movies. Every one of these movies has to have like a love story or like some sort of thing. Yes.
Okay.
Because Travis is portrayed to be such an incompetent horn dog. He always has to have some sort of like lass to be groveling at the feet of. You know, it's annoying. Like in the first one, you had Rhonda and Val. You know what I mean? That was fine. Like it was, it was perfunctory to a degree, but it also had its purpose because in the very beginning, how shallow Val was and who he wanted for a woman. And then he came around and recognized somebody like Rhonda who he got along with and he really connected with. Okay, that's fine. All right, that's about as much of a romance subplot as I need. You get something like this, he's a total distraction in this movie.
Yeah.
He's not a distraction.
Speaking of Val, how did you feel about his daughter?
I was going to say we were going to go...
I mean, it's not Kevin Bacon's daughter, but it's the character's daughter, Valerie McKee. Yeah.
Played by Jamie Lee Money. I thought that it was cool to have her in there. I thought that at least...
have some kind of callback.
Yeah, because the one thing that Tremors has been really good at is callbacks.
Yeah.
Like in the 3rd movie, Walter Chang's granddaughter is running Chang's Market.
Yeah.
In the 4th movie, it's Hiram Gummer, who is Bert's great-great-grandfather. Yes. This series has been really good at harkening back. Even in the 3rd one, they give you an update of what happened to Earl and Grady from the 2nd movie. Grady was Christopher Martin's character.
Okay.
But they have done Christopher Garden's character, excuse me. They do a really good job. Tremors does a really good job at
same family fighting these grab boys.
Yes, they do
generations.
They do a really good job though at like.
It's probably gonna be the next movie, Tremors Generations,
Legacy or something like that. But I was gonna say so. On top of, first off, like I said, you have a movie that just, I think, is cruelly mismarketed. You have a character, a really iconic cult character for a lot of people, turned into this annoying one-line spewing cliche. And then you have two, I would just say, I think this thing is exceptionally poor in its direction.
Oh, yeah.
I think Don Michael Paul, who did an okay job with Tremors 5 Bloodlines, does an incredibly botched job with this movie.
Yeah.
The camera's not still. It felt off from that first sequence.
There are so many scenes. It's like the Man of Steel syndrome that I noticed throughout the entire movie, where like in Man of Steel, there was tons of times it's just two people talking and the camera's just shaking. They do it here too. It's like, please stop. That's really annoying.
Yeah, it just feels it feels aesthetically flawed on so many levels.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't feel coherent.
I'm not gonna hold the effects to too much of a standard because it was a straight to DVD release.
But they're still not good.
They still are bad though.
They're still not good. Like I saw some Tremors fans trying to defend them and stuff. They're not that good.
No.
There's might be a couple instances where they look passable, but they look really poor here. The retractable tentacles of the worms now don't even look like what they once were.
Yeah.
Instead of looking like worms with mouths, now they look like I compared them to like slimy neomorphs of like Alien Covenant.
Yeah.
That's what they look like. They look like aliens. They look like, they look like Cloverfield
Xenomorphs.
monsters. Yeah, xenomorphs. Yes, I was just going to say. That's what they look like. And they if you look at them too, there's a reason they don't linger on the tentacles like they used to. Like if you remember the first one, even the fourth one, that's very quick a little bit too to give you an idea of what they looked like. This movie, that's very quick because they know how bad they look.
Oh yeah.
Anything else from you? I know I've kind of monopolized this.
No, man. I mean, like this to me, this was your movie of the night. This was your show. I wasn't like I didn't go into this really looking forward to it or anything, or really expecting anything like huge with it, because I know you're saying with these Tremor movies is you're always probably going to give it a star higher than it should be.
Yeah.
So like me going into this, it's like I thought that fourth one was okay, but we'll see how this turns out. Maybe it'll be like a fun like straight to DVD movie.
I can't even do that.
But no, man, it's just bad. Like it just really is just a bad sequel. It's a bad movie. It's just boring. I was just sitting the entire time like, man, I can't wait for this to wrap up, and it's actually pretty long too.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's what, about an hour and 40 minutes.
An
or
hour
so?
and 40 minutes. I was like, man, you could have cut at least 20 minutes out of this.
Yeah, it does. I was gonna say it doesn't need to be this long, especially because the characters aren't really noteworthy to begin with. Like the side characters, they don't really do much for the story to begin with. They don't really move it along. Even Valerie, like again, outside of name recognition, Valerie's not much of a character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's not given a lot to do here.
Looking at some of the old pictures of the Graboids, you're totally right. They're missing that huge like underbite thing that they used to have.
Yeah, that lip. They used to have that.
I was like thinking back, I'm like, why did it look so different? I'm like, well, I mean, I haven't really watched all the sequels, so maybe there's been like some evolution. There could be some defense, like, oh, because these were the precursors, this is what they look like, and then the ones we saw in the first one was like evolution, but like still, it doesn't even look like, hey, this is what it evolved into.
You don't know. I was gonna say you didn't see the third one, so there's no way you could really know how the original ass blasters.
Yeah,
look.
no. When that thing showed up and it was flying, I'm like, and then like they called it out. They're like, that's an ass blaster. I'm like, I wanted to text him like, yo, did they introduce these in this movie?
This is what they look like in Tremors 6.
Okay.
This is kind of what they look like a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This, and again, this does wonders for our viewing audience. I can't really trying to get the mouse over here. Trying to harken it where I want. That's what they look like in Tremors 3.
Okay.
They almost look puny by comparison.
Yeah, hold on. That
see?
thing is The Rock compared to like a child.
Yeah, really. I mean, this is like the conceptual sketches.
And then the ones in this movie, those look like normal like birds. And then the ones in this movie, like
they look like mutants.
They look like ones on steroids.